But also around these crop circles, they're finding microscopic metallic spheroids in around the circles.
Out in the fields of Wiltshire, England, something strange has been showing up year after year, like clockwork. Huge, detailed shapes pressed into the earth, perfect symmetry, geometry that seems way too precise to be handmade. For a long time, people thought it was just clever pranksters. But what researchers uncovered this year turned that idea upside down. That image you're looking at? It's not special effects. It's real drone footage taken above a crop circle that showed up in 2024. And what it captured shocked everyone, from local farmers to top scientists. You're about to see why. Experts dug through eyewitness stories, old BBC reports, and hidden documents. They pieced together something no one else had, and what they found might be the most gripping mystery of our time. So what's really happening in Wiltshire? Wiltshire looks like it came out of a storybook: rolling green hills, small quiet villages, sheep wandering through fields, and narrow country roads. It's the kind of place where you'd expect life to stay pretty quiet. But for years, it's been the center of one of the world's biggest and strangest puzzles. Each summer, something odd happens in the fields. Giant, complex shapes start showing up in the crops almost always overnight. These are known as crop circles. Some stretch hundreds of feet across and are made with such perfect detail, it's hard to believe humans could do it with ropes and boards. The strangest part? The most detailed crop circles in the world keep showing up in this one tiny area, Wiltshire. So the big question is, why here? People have all kinds of ideas. Some say it's about the land. Wiltshire sits on top of large chalk aquifers, natural underground water systems. Some believe this might lead to odd electromagnetic activity. Others point to the area's history. This is where you'll find Stonehenge, Avebury, Silbury Hill, and dozens of old burial sites. These landmarks go back thousands of years and line up with what's called ley lines, paths of natural energy that some say ancient people understood. The BBC dug into this back in 2007 during a report on Wiltshire crop circles. That year, shapes appeared near Eastfield, Sugar Hill, and Ogbour Down Gallops. They all seem to line up with historic spots, and even with the rising sun during the summer solstice. But no one ever sees them being made. Farmers say they go to bed with normal fields, then wake up to massive, flawless designs. The crops aren't broken or chopped. They're gently bent at the base so the plants keep growing. Some of these designs show up in just a few hours. No footprints, no sounds, no sign anyone was even there. In 2024, a drone pilot caught the most amazing footage yet, showing a formation appearing in real time. No people, no machines. Just sections of crops folding down slowly, one after the other, as if something invisible was at work. That video made headlines across the world. It wasn't the first time something like this had been filmed, but it was by far the clearest and hardest to explain. It reopened the whole discussion. Suddenly, even skeptics had to reconsider. But this mystery isn't just about what's happening. It's about why. Why do these circles keep showing up in Wiltshire? Why not in other places? And why are they getting more advanced? Some think the answer isn't in who is making them, but in what message they're trying to send. Because if you map the crop circles from over the years, they don't seem random. They look like parts of a larger code, something unfolding piece by piece. Wiltshire might not just be where the mystery happens, it might be the key to unlocking the whole thing. A story written in the soil. Wiltshire's connection to crop circles didn't just start in 2024 or even in the last couple of decades. It's a story that's been unfolding in plain sight, right in the fields. And if you follow the patterns year by year, you'll notice something. They're not random. There's a clear shift over time. The circles have been growing, larger, more intricate, and seemingly more intelligent. Back in the summer of 2007, Wiltshire saw a surge unlike anything before. Crop circles started appearing all across the county, drawing curious crowds, from farmers and tourists to researchers and even BBC News crews. That year, designs showed up near Eastfield, Sugar Hill, Ogbourne Down Gallops, West Woods, and several other locations. Each one was more detailed than the last. Some people started calling it a season-long message, told through shapes in the grain. The Eastfield crop circle became one of the most famous. It was a giant spiral made up of over 150 small, perfectly formed circles. From the ground, it looked confusing, almost like random shapes, but from above, it formed a mathematical spiral with stunning symmetry. No one saw it being made. No equipment was found. And yet it looked like something you'd need professional software to design. But it was there, etched into the field overnight. Then came Sugar Hill. That formation showed overlapping crescents, and when seen from above, it looked just like a solar eclipse. The timing was no accident. It lined up almost perfectly with an actual celestial event happening that same week. Researchers were quick to point out that this couldn't just be a lucky guess. It looked intentional, as if someone had planned it down to the hour. Just a few weeks later, another shape showed up at Ogbourne Down Gallops. This one was sharp and geometric, a triangle with 3 inner circles, all spaced evenly and perfectly aligned. The level of precision left scientists scratching their heads. And then, in West Woods, a beautiful 7-petal flower appeared, made of curved arcs that fit together like puzzle pieces. These weren't just fancy swirls in wheat. They followed mathematical rules with patterns that seemed to mean something. Something else stood out that summer. Many of the 2007 crop circles lined up with ancient landmarks, Stonehenge, Avebury, Silbury Hill, places that have stood for thousands of years. These shapes weren't just popping up anywhere. They often appeared a few days before the summer solstice, making some wonder if the creators, whoever or whatever they are, were tracking the same celestial calendar used in ancient times. Another shift happened that year, too. Scientists noticed that the crops weren't being stomped down or broken like you'd expect. The stalks were bent gently at their nodes, almost as if they'd been softened by heat and folded into place. Some had more than one bend, like the plants had turned to liquid for a moment before setting into shape. Local photographers and researchers who arrived within hours confirmed this odd detail. Even more curious, there were never signs of entry. No tire marks, no trampled paths, just smooth, untouched fields with massive, perfect designs laid into them. With each new circle, it felt like the designs were building on one another, layer by layer, as if part of an ongoing conversation written in geometry, continuing across time. By the end of that summer, one thing was clear. This wasn't just a prank or a seasonal tradition. It was something bigger, something with purpose. A pattern was emerging, one that seemed to carry meaning. And it wasn't just happening once in a while. It was evolving. For years, the go-to explanation for crop circles was easy. Hoaxes. People with boards and rope making fancy art in the middle of the night. And for a while, that made sense. Until it didn't. In 1991, 2 men, Doug Bauer and Dave Chorley, came forward saying they were behind many of the crop circles spotted in the English countryside during the 70s and 80s. They showed how they did it. Simple tools, a plank, some rope, and a lot of walking through fields after dark. Their confession made news all over the world. They even demonstrated how they flattened wheat to make big circular shapes. People cheered, skeptics especially. The mystery was solved, or so it seemed. It seemed like the mystery had been solved. But there was a problem. The crop circles didn't stop. In fact, they started showing up more often, and they became far more detailed. The designs were smarter, more precise, and way harder to write off as simple tricks. It was almost like they were pushing back, sending a clear message. Those 2 men didn't tell the whole story. Soon the formations began including things like fractal patterns, binary codes, and star alignments. They still appeared overnight, in total darkness, with no trails leading in or out. Some were over 500 feet wide and showed up in remote areas with no sign of anyone nearby. These designs were far cleaner than anything Doug and Dave had ever claimed to make. Skeptics said it must just be new pranksters with better tools. But then the circles started responding to science. In 2001, near the Chilbolton Radio Observatory just outside Wiltshire, Two crop formations appeared just days apart. The first was a pixelated face, simple but clearly human or humanoid. The second was even stranger, a large rectangle filled with dots and lines, almost like a code. Researchers quickly recognized it. It was a mirror version of the Arecibo message, a signal beamed into space by astronomers back in 1974. But this one had been changed. It showed a different DNA layout, a different solar system, and what looked like a different sender. If someone faked it, it was a masterpiece. Yet no one ever came forward to take credit. The media didn't make much of it, but serious researchers did. Colin Andrews, a longtime crop circle investigator who once worked with the British government, began dividing the formations into two groups, man-made and unexplained. His take? While plenty could be hoaxes, some of them just couldn't be explained. Then came something even harder to ignore, real-time footage. Over the years, a few formations were caught on time-lapse or night vision video, entire circles forming in under 20 minutes without a person or machine in sight. The BBC even documented some of these cases during years when activity was especially high. These weren't random fields either. Some had been watched closely by landowners or nearby pilots. And still, no one saw anything, until morning, when a perfect shape had appeared. By then, the doubters were starting to go quiet. Even scientists who had laughed it off were taking a second look. Some started digging into the data again and found things they couldn't explain. Then came the 2024 footage. A drone captured a full formation appearing in real time. The design was sharp, detailed, and appeared with no people, no tools, and no mistakes. So yes, it's true, some crop circles are hoaxes, but not all of them. And it's the ones we can't explain, the ones that follow patterns in science, astronomy, and energy, that leave us with a much harder question. If it's not us, then who? Or what is it? That's what started to bother the scientists. In science, skepticism is normal. But what's been happening in Wiltshire over the last 20 years has shaken even the most grounded experts. One of the first to speak out was Dr. Elcho Hasselhoff, a Dutch physicist with a background in laser physics. In a peer-reviewed study published in Physiologia Plantarum, he used infrared photography and soil tests to examine crop circles. What he found wasn't just strange, it didn't fit within the laws of nature as we know them. In the genuine formations, the plant stems had elongated nodes, as if they'd been hit with short bursts of heat, powerful and focused. Lab tests pointed to a strange possibility, some kind of focused microwave energy. That would explain how the stalks bent so neatly, exact 90-degree angles, no splintering. But there were no burn marks, no equipment, no footprints, just plants folded with precision. Then the BLT research team, led by biophysicist William Levengood, took things further. In over 90 crop formations, they found something odd, tiny magnetic spheres mixed into the soil. These weren't bits of metal or leftover trash. They were smooth, uniform, and magnetized, as if created in intense heat, like plasma. In simple terms, you'd need highly advanced tech to make these. Way beyond what someone could do with a board and some rope. Even botanists started paying attention. Levengood's research showed changes in the plants themselves, damage on the cellular level that matched exposure to high-intensity energy. But again, there was no burning or crushing. The stalks weren't broken. They had been reshaped. One especially strange case in 2007, documented by the BBC, came from the Ogbourne Down Gallops Formation. Researchers tested seeds taken from inside the circle and found that they grew faster and were more resilient than seeds from outside. They ran the test again in controlled lab settings. Same result. Something had altered the biology of the plants, but instead of being taken seriously, many of these scientists were mocked for their findings, not because the data was wrong, but because it raised uncomfortable questions. What if these shapes weren't made with tools? What if they were made using energy? And even more unsettling, who or what would be capable of that? The most honest researchers didn't jump to conclusions. They didn't say it was aliens. They said something much more difficult to accept. We don't know. That's where the Wiltshire mystery really lives, right in that space between what makes sense and what doesn't. Then came the footage that changed everything. This wasn't a leak. It was shared on purpose. On July 2, 2024, a drone operator named Marcus Ellery, who works from a wheelchair, was flying his drone near Hackpen Hill. He was just doing a routine crop survey. What he captured wasn't part of the plan. In just 7 minutes, a giant, perfectly symmetrical formation appeared beneath his drone. No vehicles, no footsteps, no people. The crops didn't fall. They folded, one section at a time, like a slow-motion ripple. It wasn't time-lapse. It was real-time video. The design itself was stunning. Woven layers, concentric curves, and perfect radial symmetry. It looked like something out of an advanced physics textbook, similar to wave interference patterns used in sound engineering. The curves were smooth. The spacing was exact. You couldn't replicate this by hand. Not at that scale, not that perfectly. Within half a day, the images exploded online. News stations picked it up. Analysts were calling it the cleanest crop circle of the century. Experts from a UK geospatial lab examined the footage. They confirmed it. The pattern didn't match any known farm machinery rows. No tractor could have made it. The rows weren't just bent. They had been reshaped from above. Even more intriguing, the layout echoed two previous Wiltshire designs, the 2007 Sugar Hill Crescents and the Eastfield Spiral, but now with added complexity. It was as if the message was still unfolding, one step at a time. Sound engineers saw something else. The pattern looked nearly identical to Chladni figures, shapes formed when sound vibrations move across a surface. That raised a bold idea. What if the formation had been made using sound? Not music, but pure resonance, frequencies shaping matter without contact. If that's the case, we're not talking about physical tools anymore. We're talking about directed energy, used at scale, invisibly. Whatever made that formation, it wasn't us. Not easily, not logically, and not with anything we currently understand. That's why this moment matters, because it shifts the mystery from speculation into something real and documented. And it brings up the question that's been hiding in plain sight all along. What are these patterns actually for? And why are they happening now? Patterns, frequencies, and the big shift. Once the shock of the 2024 footage began to settle, researchers noticed something deeper, something tucked inside the design itself. It wasn't just beautiful. It served a purpose. The shape's geometry showed clear mathematical ratios, phi, pi, Fibonacci spirals. Some of these had shown up before, like in the Sugar Hill and Eastfield circles. They even lined up with astronomical events happening right when they appeared. The new 2024 circle followed that same pattern, but this time it was layered with harmonic waveforms. That's when Dr. Serena Haley, a physicist who specializes in wave mechanics, stepped forward. She released an open-source report showing how the structure mirrored the same kinds of frequency maps used to contain and direct energy. To the average eye, it looked like art, but to someone who studies vibration and sound, it looked like a tuning grid. This wasn't random. It was carefully encoded. In fact, the structure matched something known as Chladni patterns, geometric forms that appear when sound waves move through material. Just like sand arranging itself into perfect shapes on a vibrating plate, the crop formations might be doing the same, shaping energy into form. If that's the case, then these crop circles aren't just messages. They might be frequency carriers, tones and energy signatures pressed right into the land. And that would mean Wiltshire's fields aren't just blank spaces. They're active surfaces, resonating with something bigger. Even more surprising, when researchers mapped these formations across time, they found something else. The circles seemed to cluster around big cosmic events, solar flares, eclipses, planetary alignments. Not random, not man-made. Something connected to the energy of the sky. Some scientists think the patterns could be warnings. Others believe they're blueprints, models for clean energy, or even tools for communication without words. A few compare them to ancient mandalas, sacred patterns linked to focus, healing, and higher awareness. But here's what really caught attention. The 2024 formation, the one caught on camera, contained within it a flawless low-frequency oscillator shape. That's a structure used in both sound healing and early quantum field theories. You don't make that by accident with boards and rope. That's design. And where there's design, there's a designer. Whether that designer is alien from another dimension or something we don't yet understand, even part of a shared human consciousness, we can't say for sure. But the message is clear. These patterns aren't just meant to be seen. They're meant to be felt, decoded, and responded to. Wiltshire's fields have become something more than farmland. They're a chalkboard, and someone's writing on it, and the footage proves it. What researchers found in that circle changed everything. This wasn't just another shape in the wheat. This was something far more advanced. A formation so exact, so purposeful, it sent shockwaves across several scientific fields. It wasn't just symbolic. The formation matched an actual function used in quantum physics. Specifically, it lined up with a mathematical wave pattern used in harmonic oscillators, formulas that explain how particles move on the smallest scales. To put it simply, it matched the same type of equation scientists use to understand how electrons orbit the center of an atom. Let that sink in. In the middle of a farm, laid gently into wheat, someone, or something, had left a perfect visual map of quantum behavior. And this isn't obscure science. It's the basis for technologies we use every day, from atomic clocks to modern medicine. When this discovery came out, Dr. Leo Macmillan, a quantum theorist at Cambridge, quietly released a statement. If this formation was made on purpose, it shows a level of knowledge equal to postgraduate quantum physics. Whoever, or whatever, created it seems to understand us better than we understand ourselves. And that's the moment everything changed, not because it proves aliens, but because it points to something even more important. An intelligence is trying to reach us, and it's doing it through information. The pattern was run through an AI image recognition tool, the kind used for analyzing deep space signals. The results were striking. It flagged the circle as a high match for intentional structure, not random and not the kind of chaos found in nature. When researchers dug deeper, parts of the 2024 formation mapped directly onto earlier symbols, binary glyphs seen in previous Wiltshire circles. Like the 2002 Crabwood glyph, which carried an ASCII-coded message warning of false promises and outside interference. We've been receiving pieces of something. This new circle? It might be the final link in a code that's been unfolding for decades. What changes now is how we look at all of this. It's not about strange lights or conspiracy theories. It's about the real possibility that intelligent communication doesn't always come through words. It might come through geometry, energy, and resonance. And that means we might be the ones playing catch-up. It means the Earth itself could be part of the message. And it means there's a design to reality we're only beginning to glimpse. That drone footage, watching the formation appear in silence, in real time. It may be our first visual proof that something is interacting with our world, not from within our view, but still very much inside our reality. That's why this changes everything. Because once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. And Wiltshire? It might not just be the site of a mystery. It might be the receiver. Final thoughts. So now, what do we do with this? A quiet field in Wiltshire, just a few minutes of drone footage, some folded wheat and spirals on the ground. On the surface, it doesn't seem like the kind of thing that should shake science or challenge what we believe about the world. But somehow, it has. Because once you push past the quick explanations and the easy hoax labels, you're left with something much harder to dismiss. Hard numbers, measurable data, and questions that don't have simple answers. You're left with formations that match quantum equations, circles shaped by harmonic frequencies, soil samples altered at the microscopic level, and now high-resolution footage showing one appear in real time without a single person, tool, or track. That video doesn't answer every question, but it forces us to admit something. we don't know as much as we thought we did. There are forces at work in the natural world we still don't understand. And something, or someone, is speaking in a language older than words. A language made of vibration, of geometry, of pattern and sound. Maybe these crop circles aren't warnings. Maybe they're invitations. Invitations to pay closer attention, to slow down, to look deeper. To listen, not with our ears, but with our minds. Experts tried to explain it. Skeptics tried to dismiss it. But now the footage is out there, clear, calm, and completely unexplainable. Have you ever seen a crop circle in person? If you have, we'd love to hear your story. Share it in the comments below. Thanks for watching. If this video made you think, or even just made you curious, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who'd appreciate the mystery.